Halloween season is here. Spooky time on Forest Tales channel. The Curse. Magna had too many contacts to manage, but no friends at all. Not that she was aware of. Her understanding of herself was very low and the esteem very high, as her arrogance. So, she imagined herself very loved and only could sustain the delusion by being very rich and surrounded by smart people. Her daughter Diana, on the other hand, was very lovable. She was still in her 20s and was adored by everyone that met her. She would care for people, always asking about their day, trying to help them when she could and existing as an adorable lady. Diana was always with her mother, since she was very young, and she has been her main companion since always, and Magna was very proud of her little girl. They would have brunched together every Saturday with some women from the country club and spend half of the afternoon drinking mimosas and gossiping about their lives. Alberta would tell them about her flirting with the yoga instructor, 15 years younger than her, ignoring the fact that she was long-term married. Jenny had exciting stories about her husband and his sexual practices and the fetish to be treated like a dog, barking. He used to mate with her leg and even peeing in some furniture. They liked to have brunch in a cute patio of a Georgian tea house that had delicious options of refined pastry and tea, but also the classic cocktails and dishes, besides being in a really beautiful spot. The manager was a lady named Lydia, around 40 years old, very smart and full of life, and Diana loved to chat with her when she could. The waitresses were all young girls that speak very little English but were pretty and always smiling. But that day when the group arrived, there was a new girl attending them that was unusual. The waitress was small, thin, with a pale skin and very dark eyes and hair, black like crow feather. She was serious and spoke very little, what bothered Magna very much. She was used to better treatment there. Thus, Magna started to tease the tiny waitress to try to force a smile and lovable attitude from her. As she wasn't understanding due to not speak English, the tiny waitress just got nervous with her attempts, not knowing what she had to do, pointing to the menu as if she asked for Magna to show what she wanted. Magna gave up on her and continued having fun with the other ladies, but when she was leaving, she spoke with Lydia complaining of the lack of sympathy from the new girl and suggesting that her tea shop no longer had the same quality. As Lydia looked at the new tiny girl and said she was going to be called attention as it should be, one of the older waitresses translated to Georgian what was being said. Then, on a whim, the girl took something out of her pocket, spoke an unintelligible sentence with her own closed hand and, approaching the group, opened the hand blowing a dark powder in Magna's face. Immediately, the security guard held the tiny girl by the shoulders, pulling her to the kitchen while yelling at her in her language. Magna started yelling at everyone, saying she would never go back to that place again, and no apologies from Lydia were enough to make her stop. Diana finally calms her mother down and takes her home. That same day, Magna started vomiting. She would vomit everything in her stomach, and nothing she ate that day could stay longer in her body. Magna couldn't even drink water. Believing it was just food poisoning from that place, she refused to go to the doctor, but days passed, and she wasn't getting any better. She had nothing to vomit anymore, but her nausea wasn't going away. After 5 days, she started vomiting a dark substance that smelled like hell on earth, and finally Diana could take her mother to the hospital. They found out that Magna excrement was being expelled from her own mouth. The doctors couldn't find out why she was ill, and Magna had to stay in the hospital overnight. Next morning, suspecting of real poisoning or intoxication, Magna asked Diana to go back into the tea house and get a sample of that dust to bring to the hospital for an examination. Diana agreed and soon returned, saying to her mother that the place was closed, for an unknown reason. Days were passing by, and Magna's health was worst. Now she was vomiting blood and other weird substances that the doctors believed were part of the tissue of her stomach, esophagus, or intestines. I am turning inside out, Magna thought. She begged Diana to find that girl or whoever could help her, but Diana would only say that the place was closed, and no one would respond to her calls. So, finally, after almost a month in the hospital, Magna died. Diana quickly arranged the funeral and provided everything her mother would like to have for the occasion. Once the service was over, Diana went to the tea house one more time. Lydia opened the door as usual, kissing her passionately and pulling Diana's dress up. They enjoyed their night together with champagne and their favorite dish. That night was for celebration, and to honor it, that night Lydia didn't put her best girls to work downstairs. Instead, she brings them to her room to please Diana as she liked. The regular clients were notified in advance to pick others, newcome ladies that were still going to attend them. Her house was never closed after all. Next day, the tiny waitress knocked their door to get her reward, her passport back, and freedom to go away. Lydia let her in, and once there, Diana stabbed her with a syringe in the neck. Diana couldn't let the waitress free to tell people who was responsible for her mother's death. But while she was fading, the tiny girl held to Diana's hair and whispered her last spell. She knew that could happen to her, but she'd rather to die than be there any longer. Diana said, "It's a waste. She worked well when I tested her, talented fingers." Lydia answered, "We have better. Don't worry," calling the security guard to take care of her body. The couple went back to bed, as the other 4 girls were there, waiting for another round. In the middle of their fun, Diana saw a little black shadow dragging in the bed like a slug. It was moving slowly and it was disgusting, so she pulled everyone away to look closely. Suddenly, a scream. One of the girls had those slugs on her thighs, moving above her skin. The other girls tried to help her, pulling those things with their hands, but they were resistant, attached as a leech. Lydia pulled one out, that flinched and made a high-pitched sound, and an almost invisible gelatinous line was seen coming out from the mouth of that thing. The line was followed by Lydia and was leading towards Diana. The other end was not visible and was coming out from Diana. In despair, Diana started to pull that out of her, as she realized there were several lines coming out, especially from her belly button, but also her ears, nose, and private parts. While she was pulling, the other women watched perplexed the leeches appearing between the sheets, on the floor from their own bodies. Some were visible, others not anymore. Their screams created a mess downstairs, and some of the clients went away, and the neighbors called the cops. Diana went to the hospital, but it doesn't matter the efforts the doctors make to remove the parasites, some more will just mysteriously show up from inside herself. Lydia was arrested for trafficking all those girls, as well as her staff. The victims were rescued and sent back home. She stopped sleeping because of the nightmares with the slugs, and the visions of the tiny which she murdered made her to finally lose her sanity. Follow at Forest the Storyteller on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok for more. Check out our website to read more tales. www.forestplumtales.com